We're joined by Dr. Julius Garvey, who is one of the sons of Marcus Garvey. Greetings, Dr. Garvey, and welcome.
It's good to be with you. It's a warm day, but despite that, it's still good to be with you.
Now, I mentioned, and I apologize, I have to be asking this. I mentioned that you are one of the sons of the Honorable Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
Which are you, the first or the second son?
No, my older brother is Marcus Garvey Jr.
Marcus
I
Garvey,
am the younger son.
you are the youngest son. Okay. Now, we are happy to have you here, first of all. And I understand you're on a mission tomorrow to Washington, D.C. Tell us about that mission.
Press conference in Washington at the National Press Club, and we're announcing the fact that we have placed a petition for a posthumous pardon on the desk of President Obama, and also with the pardon attorney of the Justice Department. And our announcement tomorrow then is kicking off a program to mobilize support, both popular support and support of the politicians, such as the Congressional Black Caucus, to encourage President Obama to act before he leaves office on this particular pardon.
Okay, now tell us, what is the objective of the pardon?
Well, basically, the idea is to exonerate Marcus Garvey because his name is still on the books of the United States as a criminal. And as you know, he's the first national hero of Jamaica. He's the one responsible for transforming black politics globally. He's responsible for the civil rights movement here, laying the foundation. He's responsible for all the nationalist movements in the Caribbean and in Africa, laying the foundations there, whether it's with the ANC in South Africa or the Kikuyu in Kenya, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm. Now, we have a
And it's a disgrace to have him listed as a criminal when there's no evidence, and the whole thing was perpetrated by the perverted mind of J. Edgar Hoover.
Now, I must tell you that we have a chat room here where our listeners are commenting as you are speaking, and there's a question coming in: pardon or exonerate? Help us to understand the distinction between the two, because this is a petition for a pardon, a presidential pardon. Explain why you say exonerate when this is a petition for a pardon.
Yeah, well, we don't have any other, legal venue because it has been brought before the Congress by Congressman Rangel, House resolutions, all the way back to 2007. It has been brought before the House Judiciary Committee by John Conyers. I participated in that along with my brother in 1987.
Yes.
So it has gone through those processes through the Congress, and to no avail. It has not gotten out of those particular areas. And now the only other legal way to approach it is through a posthumous pardon. There's no other legal venue. But what we're saying with the pardon, we've presented evidence that there was no criminal act, that there was no evidence, and that the trial was bogus. So we would expect that the president would say this, and therefore it would also be an exoneration. He would say no crime was committed, and Marcus Garvey was therefore innocent. So we're using this process, which is a legal avenue, to quote obtain exoneration.
Now, how many signatures are you seeking to get? Because I understand that the president, the White House, has a threshold of some 20,000 signatures that before they even pay any attention to a petition. So is there a goal associated with it? What is the process here?
Yeah. Well, again, it's not so much the number of signatures. As you know, in some sense, politics is who you know and what you know. Therefore, we expect that the Congressional Black Caucus, who Yvette Clarke is leading the push there, for the exoneration, the Congressional Black Caucus will come out strongly. We know that we have Congressman Rangel, we know we have John Conyers, we know we have Meeks, we know we have Hakeem Jeffries, we know we have Yvette Clarke, and so on. So
Right.
we're expecting that the Congressional Black Caucus would come out strongly to encourage the president to take this action. And we're also asking for different organizations to step up. Right now, we have a letter from Andy Young, former Ambassador Andy Young, that we're going to be reading at the press conference tomorrow. So, we're getting that kind of support. That doesn't mean that we do not want the support of those people who would write in, with a petition. And we're in the process of organizing that so it can be online, and it may even go to President Obama's Facebook account. So, these things all need to work together.
Well, there actually is a petition online courtesy of the UNIA. Are you familiar with that initiative?
No, I'm familiar with the brother in Florida,
Jeffrey
who was. I'm sorry.
Jeffrey Phelps?
What's the name again?
Jeffrey Phillips, I believe.
Yes, exactly right. And he has collected 10,000 signatures, which, as far as I know, he had placed on Obama's desk at some time through a Congress person, I think, from the Florida area. So I'm familiar with that.
And I see a UNIA petition on change.org, which is seeking 10,000 signatures. I don't know how current it is, but it seems to say that it currently has over 7,000 signatures. The goal is 10,000. And I'm wondering how all of these initiatives are working together or not working together.
Well, it's hard to get everybody organized into one unit, but there's nothing wrong with everybody working, towards the same goal, but working independently, because, this needs to be a massive effort. We need to get signatures from the Caribbean. We need to get ambassadors from, CARICOM, the Prime Minister of Jamaica. We need to get ambassadors from the African Union, a statement from the African Union, etc. So, this can't all be done, under one umbrella. So it's quite okay for people to work independently because we're all working towards the same goal, which is the exoneration of Marcus Garvey and removing this cloud of criminality from his name.
So I gather from what you said that there's no such thing as a posthumous exoneration.
Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that, because exoneration, as I understand it, is something that has to go through the courts, and the courts would be the body that would exonerate someone and say you're not responsible for the things that you've been convicted of. In the case of a pardon, this is in Article 2 of the Constitution that grants the president the authority to pardon someone, and there are usually some terms associated with a pardon that says you can't do this and you can't do that. And President Obama has actually done several presidential pardons during his 7.5 years in office. And on the subject of pardoning Marcus Garvey, he has said that no, he thinks it'd be a waste of time. This goes back too far. It would not be of any value, and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure that you're aware of the previous initiatives. You're aware of the Prime Minister of Jamaica last year on his visit, raising the issue. Well, you just said that sometimes it's not so much, it's politics. What do you think it will take to convince the president this time around to pardon Garvey?
I have no idea, but we'll continue with our work until it happens or the next president goes into office.
But what consideration, though, are you taking of the history of this effort to get a pardon? Like you mentioned on Garvey's...
Well, we know the history. I mean, if you go by the history, then you'll stop. You'll say it didn't happen before, therefore it can't happen now. And that's what history is.
Right.
Oh, but you can make history.
No. I'm not suggesting...
History is made by people who surmount obstacles.
Right. I'm not suggesting that you give up because of the history. What I'm asking, though, is in light of the history, what new strategies, what new tactics are going to be put in place to overcome the obstacles that has been faced in the past? Because it would seem to me that if you've gotten a no before, then without some new information, some new tactics, something new to overcome, then you're likely to get a no again. So I'm trying to find out, is there something new that this particular campaign is considering that has not been tried before?
That there is nothing specifically new. There is a continued pressure in terms of the president for him to use his executive authority to grant what we are asking for.
Mm-hmm. Now, talk to us a little bit about then the benefits of a pardon. I notice in the petition that you've provided, it uses both words in the language that was very interesting, where it talks about, let me see what it says here. It says the posthumous pardon petition now filed on Garvey's behalf seeks to exonerate him from the stigma of the conviction. So the petition, the pardon, seeks to exonerate him from the stigma of the conviction. Help us to understand what that language means.
Well, I think the language is clear, and I think I explained it before, that this is a legal process that is left open to us, which is a posthumous pardon. And because of the evidence that we have placed in front of the president, we are expecting and hoping that he will say that Marcus Garvey was not guilty of any particular crime, and that was a miscarriage of justice. I think that's fairly clear. That is what we're aiming for.
I understand that.
Therefore, the criminal cloud will be removed from his name.
But also, as you said, that didn't stop the government of Jamaica from naming him their first national hero. Someone, in responding to the outreach about our conversation this evening, pointed out that Garvey is now in the curriculum in the schools of Jamaica. So apparently that stigma, maybe it doesn't exist, or does it really exist? It didn't seem
well, I think that's a figment of your imagination or somebody else's imagination. If somebody is branded a criminal by the most powerful government in the world, then a stigma exists. I mean, that's plain and simple. It doesn't matter what, quote, Jamaica has done, which it has done the right thing in naming him the national hero and teaching about him in the schools. But that does not happen here in the United States, which is the most powerful country in the world, which sets the tone for the rest of the world, which says what the rest of the world should think, etc., etc. So it's of extreme importance that the United States says, look, there was a miscarriage of justice. I mean, and it's plain to see that the judiciary in the United States is not on the side of the black man. And that is something that has happened for 100 years. So we need to bring that to light and correct that.
But I have to ask you then, and Saber, you have something to... Don't?
No.
I have to ask you then, how does that square with the philosophies and the opinions of Marcus Garvey himself, who talked about Africa for the Africans and Europe for the Europeans, and he basically was on a path that I don't know that it gave as much importance or credence to what the United States was doing as you just gave in what you just said. In other words, he was charting a path that was independent of what the United States was doing. He was about his business, as I understand Garvey. How does that square with what you just said?
Well, then I think you need to understand that he himself, made an appeal against the conviction because he knew the conviction was wrong. So he needed his name cleared. So he initiated the process himself. And we are continuing that. This is the wish of Marcus Garvey, to have his name cleared in all courts, everywhere in the world.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. And I believe that there is strong support for clearing his name. I'm trying to understand, though, whether or not a pardon does that, and that the significance of the position of the United States, as you've just explained, is consistent with his philosophy and thinking. Look, I would have wanted my name clear too, clearly, especially if you did nothing wrong. So I certainly understand Garvey's initiative, and I'm trying to understand more clearly the current initiative to clear his name and the objective in clearing the name. Because it seems to me that...
Well, I think I've explained it, and I'm saying that we're continuing Marcus Garvey's wish, because he was innocent. That's why he defended himself. The first lawyer that he had told him to cop a plea, and he said, "No, I'm innocent." And that's why he went to court on his own behalf, and we're continuing that. As a son of Marcus Garvey and as disciples of Marcus Garvey, we need to continue fighting to clear his name of all of these charges and prove his innocence, because he's our national hero, and he has set the stage for the redemption of Africa, and we have to follow his philosophy. And and if he's indeed marked as a criminal by some particular entity, which again is the most powerful entity in the world, then that blunts his message. That blunts his message. People have said, "Gee, there's a stigma. Maybe I shouldn't read this book about Marcus Garvey. Maybe he wasn't really who he says he is, or some people say he is because the United States government says blah 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 and blah blah blah." So that needs to go.
Well, I don't think that. But I don't think that's necessarily the case, because we do know that our greatest leaders are always stigmatized by the power structure. So we've come to kind of like understand that. So to a certain extent, there's two ways of looking at it, in the sense that the white power structure will look at it a certain way, but the people who grassroots who know and love Marcus Garvey, they'll never see it that way. So, for example, I as a UNIA member, I forgot all about the fact that he was convicted. It's like, to us in the UNIA or people, we don't think about that. We know what he stood for and what he was about, and in the government branding him as a criminal, we just see it as part of the whole historical white supremacist attempt to undermine African people. So,
Mahatma Gandhi was put in prison by the British,
yes.
And a number of his followers were imprisoned and even killed. And he's looked to the world over as, one of the fathers of Indian nationalism. It's the same thing all over the world. But the point is that you prove them wrong. And that is the point.
And I guess the question is, to what end? Some people contend that the energy, that they have not seen enough energy in propagating the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey, that we should be spending a lot more time doing that. And I'm trying to understand.
Well, let me just say that, for the last 60 years, I've been doing just that. Okay? I speak weekly, monthly, etc., about Marcus Garvey all over the world. So I'm not sure who the we are that is saying whatever they are. I see it necessary to clear his name. And I think everybody who is saying this or that needs to propagate the philosophy themselves and take that on as a mantle.
I absolutely agree that we all need to be doing more to do just that. And I think that is the issue that some people raise about. Earlier you said, there can be several initiatives going on at the same time to clear Marcus Garvey's name. One of the things that Marcus Garvey is recognized for was his organizing ability in bringing us together. And that certainly is a part of his legacy, bringing us together. Is that no longer operative, that we should really work together to get things done, and that in numbers there is a better strength and chance of getting the objective accomplished? Or is it okay and equally acceptable to be pursuing different divergent strategies and initiatives at the same time towards the same goal? Is a part of the question that some people are asking. What are your thoughts about that?
Marcus Garvey in 1927 wrote a poem, The United States of Africa. We're still battling for the United States of Africa. Okay? The African Union is still battling for the United States of Africa. So that was a thesis, a central thesis of Marcus Garvey. And that's a central thesis of all Garveyites. Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. But everybody can do whatever it is that they think needs to be done to move things forward. One man can't do it, or even one organization can't do it. We have an African Union. You have a UNIA that is still existing. It's somewhat fragmented. It exists. You have many, many different organizations, Trans-Africa, etc. They're all working on some particular aspect of uplifting, African people.
Respond.
No longer have simply one umbrella.
Yeah.
The whole system is too big. It's 1.2 billion African people. You can't push them under one umbrella. You know, the African Union, you know, is trying to create the sixth region. And we're struggling with trying to create the sixth region.
Yeah.
There you have. I mean, you know, there's a lot of work to be done.
I don't know if it's a matter of pushing, though. I don't think Marcus Garvey pushed anyone. I think he attracted folk
I'm not sure
more
about
so
pushing.
than
Did
pushing.
I say something about pushing?
Yes, you did say you can't push everyone under one umbrella, and Marcus Garvey did have a very big umbrella, but it wasn't the result of pushing everyone under one umbrella. I think he attracted people to what he was saying.
I think I'm finished with the conversation. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, thanks for being with us. Well, there you have it. Dr. Julius Garvey saying his piece on this mission to seek the exoneration of his father, Marcus Garvey. And as you could see, he's very passionate about his mission.
Somewhere the communication went wrong somewhere, because he was antagonistic, and I can understand why.
Well, when you say the communication went wrong, what do you mean?
In other words, did he feel like we were attacking him or something? Because that's how he was acting.
I think he correctly felt that his work was being questioned, and I think that Ms. G says he came on in a very antagonistic manner.
Well, he definitely became antagonistic. I mean,
and I think that is indeed a part of the problem we face as a culture. It's a part of the reason why, for instance, the notion that we working under one umbrella is not the way to go. We need to just do our own thing separately.
No, because that's what Garvey was all about. Garvey's organization was, in fact, that quote unquote umbrella. You know,
but that's exactly the situation we face today. Why I was getting ready to say to Dr. Garvey that, you know, notwithstanding the significance and the importance of the work that Marcus Garvey did, one of the comments I got today regarding this was, well, you know, the Olympics is going on. I can't be listening to this conversation while the Olympics is going on. That's the significance.
You can record that. With all the technology, you can record that and watch that later. I mean,
but my point is, that's the kind of significance that some of us place on Marcus Garvey and the work and a discussion about this. And really,
so I'm trying to figure out why was he antagonistic? What? I don't know, man. I'm a little stupefied, just like Miss G, man. You know, I'm like, what the hell? You know, he basically hung up on us, and I'm like, what the hell was all that about?
Miss G says, I'm really stumped.
You know.
Well, I can't say that I am, though. I really can't say that I am, because, and I don't know why you are, because you've been around the block long enough to know how.
Yeah, but I mean, I was recently, like as I was talking to him before we came on the air, I was recently at an audit meeting where he made a presentation to the African Union. You know, he was acting normal then.
Yes, because that was not a conversation. That was a presentation. You don't get questioned in a presentation or get questions raised. I think I think Dr. Garvey expected to make a presentation.
As opposed to being questioned.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was the expectation, that you simply come and you make a presentation, because in large part, that's how media works.
I tell you what then was disappointing then is that he wasn't able to respond to simple questions without losing his composure.
And I'm saying,
I didn't expect that.
I'm saying I can understand it, because I understand the condition we're in, the position we're in. It is precisely why we're in the position we're in. Which is why I said, look, Marcus Garvey didn't force anybody under one umbrella. He attracted people under that umbrella. Now, who is being attracted by the performance here this evening? This is precisely what I'm saying. There is a distinction here between the practice, never mind the philosophy and opinions, the practice of Marcus Garvey. He organized 6 million people around the world. All right? We can't get 20,000 signatures and say, oh, the numbers don't matter. What is that?
We should be, first of all, we should be able to get way more than 20,000.
What is the notion that the numbers don't matter is patently ridiculous.
Numbers do matter.
Okay. Let's see.
To say that is who you know. That's like elitist politics, and Marcus Garvey was a grassroots guy, you know. So there's an incongruity with that kind of thinking. Marcus Garvey had the masses. He had the first mass movement, mass organization. You know, people had been around. They had all kinds of ideas, but he had even when I worked with Pen Abstract, it's not a mass movement organization. Garvey is distinct and unique in the creating of a mass movement.
You remember we had a conversation last year, the year before, with one of Al Sharpton's representative from Detroit.
Yeah, they got mad too.
And we had the same result. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's a practice. It's a practice in our community, though, that is quite debilitating. Okay, and I think it just got exposed here on CPRLive this evening in a very dramatic way. That have you stunned? And you're the host.
But I am, though, because I'm saying to myself,
of course you are.
Where did he come from with that? I mean, it's like, you know, he was upset because we asked him some simple questions, or he was upset because we were asking
consider
about,
them simple questions.
We asked him about being exonerated. I mean,
you question.
At a certain point,
we had the audacity to question what he's doing.
Here's what I got the impression that he thought that we didn't understand what he was saying when we understood what he was saying, you know. And I saw him getting frustrated when he felt like he was repeating himself. And I'm, you know, I'm just surprised, man. I'm not because I understand what has us in the condition we're in. I'm going to tell you what happened. He felt like CPR, you know, who are we, small organization, you know, and so he could just talk to us any way that he wanted to. Because I'm going to tell you, if we had 1 million listeners, he wouldn't have acted like that. I don't think he would have. I think he's making assumptions about our organization, about who we are.
I
think so, man.
I don't think so. Listen.
How could he?
No.
If he's trying to get signatures, and if we're an organization, he doesn't know how many listeners that we have. He must have assumed or thought, because otherwise he would be doing himself a disservice.
Understand this, though. The platforms that can give him 1 million signatures are not going to raise the questions we raise. That's why he has never faced this and will never face this in those arenas. Because those arenas think and behave the way he thinks and behaves. And we get played by the media in this way over and over and over. That is the problem that we have to overcome. Let me take this opportunity to say to folk, this is why y'all need to support CPRLive. You understand? This is because this is what is lacking in the discourse in our community, in what passes for media these days. This is precisely what is lacking, and so he thinks because we're not humongous.
That must be what he thought. I think first of all, that's how they think. Because again, he let us know. He says it's not the number, it's who you know.
Yeah.
So already that's a certain kind of elitist approach.
Of course.
And so that same attitude would be applied to us. Well, you know, who are we?
Yeah.
You know, we weren't worthy of him questioning us, and so
I'm glad you're deducing it too, because let's go to the chat room. Miss G says he has no respect. Okay. Saber Demani and Brother Carlisle, you've all exposed it. Well, it's what we do here. We take pride in what Plathel Benjamin and WBI used to say, expose the charlatans.
I'm going to tell you something.
Heighten the contradictions.
I'm still thrown off. Because you see, so because, so that means that he felt that because that he was being pardoned and not exonerated, that our beef was the fact that he should be arguing for exoneration. But if he clearly said that legal option is not open because you can't do it posthumously, but then that should have basically settled that, and he should have been able to have the conversation with us without him getting upset. He explained it wasn't open. Was he telling the truth? Was he lying? I mean, I don't think that
Well, I think the conversation moved on, though, to the strategic significance and importance of pursuing what he's pursuing. And when you begin to question these...
right, I understand some of it, like, for example, the notion that, because you raised the notion that, well, I mean, is it really necessary if the U.S. doesn't pardon him, but the rest of the world, respects him and loves him and cherishes him?
So what?
Is it necessary? Right.
Yeah.
And
So those kinds of issues...
that's a valid point, though.
Of course it's a valid point.
Because I never even think about Garvey as a criminal. It never even comes to my mind. It's like, what are you talking about? And I'm saying that many Garveyites and people who are nationalists, they don't think about that.
And the point I'm trying to get to is, if we are doing in our community what we're supposed to be doing, that will not be an issue. In fact, the conviction of Garvey ought to be held up as Exhibit A.
He was doing the right thing.
As to, well, not even so much what he was doing. Exhibit A as to how this culture treats anyone who tries to do the right thing by their people. Right. As you pointed out, that historically, that's the case. So
that's what they always do. You should be suspect when they hold a person who challenges the system up for praise. Right.
Exactly.
You should be suspect.
Right. And if we're doing by our people what we're supposed to be doing, that's the point we're supposed to be making. Mm-hmm. That don't be surprised that Dr. King was assassinated. Don't be surprised that Malcolm was assassinated. Right. Don't be surprised that Garvey was banished, deported, sent out of the country. Do not be surprised, because this is what will be done. Don't be surprised.
And he was politically assassinated.
Right. Don't be surprised that Patrice Lumumba was assassinated.
Right.
Don't be surprised that all these attempts were made on Fidel Castro. Don't be surprised of what went on in Nicaragua. Don't be surprised about Manuel Noriega. Do not be surprised.
Right.
That's the point, that Garvey's conviction and deportation, that's what we should be saying about it.
Right.
As Ms. G says, it should be a badge of honor.
I mean, part of the contradiction is that Garvey was anti-imperialist, and he was fighting white supremacy. So now you're going to come to the bastion, the main country that is the most dominant white supremacist element in the world, and now ask them to forgive the dude that was fighting against them.
What if I had gotten to the point that wouldn't asking for forgiveness be tantamount to acknowledging culpability and guilt? If not, what are you forgiving him for? Why forgive?
But then he came up with the fact that, well, his father, wanted to appeal or whatever, so he's carrying on that legacy. That was his argument. Oh man.
Well, I don't know that his father went about the same thing he's going about, though.
I mean, once his father, I don't really remember. I've read Garvey, and I guess the person that you would really, the person you really would read to find this out, you have to look in the Garvey papers to really see what was Garvey's position. Because as far as I know from my remembering, I think that once that happened, he got back to Jamaica. He continued work as usual. It didn't burden him.
In fact,
he kept on with the program.
I was listening to some program last night that pointed out that Garvey got deported in 2000 in
27.
In 29, he had a conviction. He had a convention in Jamaica that attracted 25,000 people. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right, he kept on
working.
Right. It didn't throw him off. I mean,
He had more people there than all the signatures they have combined trying to get this thing going. They've been working on for all this time.
First of all, they're not doing something right, because you can easily get 20,000 signatures.
And I think that's part of what got him off, because I suggested they're not doing something right. How come?
Right, you can easily get 20,000 signatures.
How can Dr. Julius Garvey not know that the UNIA is pursuing a petition, and suggest in his document that this will benefit not only the Garvey family but everybody?
Right.
You don't even give two hoots about everybody that you're looking to benefit?
There's been a falling out. I think up until recently, like he's not on good terms with the leadership. He was up to a certain point. But when I spoke to the President General, I think there's been like a falling out, you know.
Yeah, well, guess what? We ain't shepherds around here. We don't herd folk and just follow the program. We are CPRLive, where we say it ain't just Linus, he was flabbergasted. What is this? Brother C, please note that folks on Facebook are expressing their disappointment with Dr. Julius Garvey. This is being shared in the chat room. Let me see another comment in the chat room here. What message does he send to my son? Linus, he was flabbergasted at Dr. Let me read from the bottom. Oh, I logged on with my 14-year-old son. He was flabbergasted at Dr. Garvey's behavior. What message does he send to my son? Well, there it is.
I mean, I don't even think first of all, he was antagonistic. We weren't even being antagonistic in our tone. You were being nice, polite.
I thought I was.
Yeah, you were. I mean, I don't even understand.
Well, listen. Why don't we open up the phones and ask folk to give us a call and Sergeant Fu said, "What me to tell you?" Oh, Miss G said, "No, you were not, Brother C. You were being very polite." Oh, I thought she was saying I was not being polite. Okay. Listen, I could have been whatever because I got passion too, okay? And when confronted by some cracker-knackle BS, I can get passionate. So I don't, you'll have to tell me if I was polite or not. I know I was trying to be.
You were good.
I was good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I talked to him offline. His brother did participate in an organization that Dinkins was really behind.
Yeah.
Because he was at 2 or 3 of our meetings, And I remember he came there one time. It was winter, and he didn't even have a coat on, And we cracked the joke. We were like, "Hey, what's wrong with this guy, man?" Like it's a little cold outside. And somebody cracked the joke that he was dating a European, and that's why he was able to come outside without his coat on. I remember it. So he was definitely,
that's a stretch.
He was definitely at the meetings,
Yeah.
Well,
how did you find him then? Was he personable? Did he not have reason to come out of a bag?
I don't know, man. I'm like, that's very, very. I'm still bugging. Tell you the truth.
You're still bugging.
I mean, remember when the former prime minister called us that time, and he got off the phone real quick too.
Yeah.
Who was that? Which guy?
That was Andrew Holness.
Yeah, I'm like, what is up with these, man? You come to get somebody to interview, and then you're like, okay, you hang up in 2 seconds.
I'm telling you, Sable, the media in general throw softballs.
And guess what? That even that interview, it's like that was smooth. I guess he just had us on a time.
No,
limit,
look,
it's
a part of what you said. How dare you ask me questions, little you? Who are you?
Yeah. Who are we? But if we had 1 million followers, he'd be right there kissing our butt, thinking he'd be able to get something out of it.
But he knows that.
Excuse me. But see, in terms of politics and power, that's the reality. I remember once when we were with Klein and we were working out of Queens, we met with Floyd Flake.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there and he's right across from us and we're talking. And he basically told us, man, come back when you get bigger.
Yeah.
He told us that.
Yeah.
We're like,
we
want to help now. Come back when you get bigger.
It's called the arrogance of power. Miss G says, Brother C, what do you mean? This is not the way you act on an interview. I'm not sure what you mean, Miss G. Help me understand. I'm not. He was very antagonistic. Period. Oh, you mean that's not the way one should act on an interview?
Right. Oh, that's old stuff. She said that a long time ago.
Oh, I scrolled. Okay, sorry about that.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, that was like so.
Oh, wait. Oh, okay. So now she's gonna Let's see. Can't stand the heat. You are too intelligent and smooth. I'm going to tell you what happened. Someone got to him and told him to watch out for you guys at CPR. You think you know more than everyone else. Yep.
Oh man, man.
Apparently, I don't know about knowing more than everyone else, but we certainly seem to know enough to get some very high-profile people flustered. What's up with that?
I'm telling you, I'm just like, I'm really like, I wouldn't have expected that of him. I didn't expect it really. And again, you see, when you're Marcus Garvey's son, right? You got to act a certain kind of way, man. You just have to. You can't like just. In other words, you just can't act the way you want to act. You got to act the way that you do your father right.
On the other hand, when you're Marcus Garvey's son, you can do anything you want to do.
No, that's not the way. No, that's not how it goes, man.
In certain circles, that is exactly how it goes.
That's not how it goes.
Ask Donald Trump and his sons. You can.
That's not the model we're using.
Ah.
That's the wrong model.
No, now you're talking. That's the wrong model.
You got to be righteous, man. You got to come straight. Marcus Garvey was people argue with Marcus Garvey because Marcus Garvey had that tendency where he always had a quick comeback.
Absolutely.
He was very dogged in his position.
Absolutely.
But he was a righteous man, though. He was an honorable person.
Yeah, well, and, this was not Marcus Garvey. This was his son. Don't get him confused. Don't get him confused.
He wasn't.
And Sister Lioness.
He worked hard for the UNIA, man. Sometimes that personal sacrifice. He wasn't a materialist kind of guy. He was gruff. He got it done.
I'd like to invite folk out there to give us a call and let us know what you think. 718-841-9986. Please give us a call if you are so inclined, and share your thoughts on Garvey's legacy and what you thought was done with it here this evening on the part of his son.
No, don't say
because
that. Don't say that, man.
Why would you say don't say that? Because isn't that what the real issue is?
First of all, he didn't do anything to Marcus Garvey's legacy. If anything,
well, I'm asking folk.
He showed himself to just be.
Now you're going to tell the folk don't call. You just
No, I'm not saying that, but come on now. You can't put Garvey's legacy on his son acting like a knucklehead. That's a bit much, man.
On his son acting like a knucklehead. Well, you just said it all right there.
Yeah.
But see, I'm not personalizing this to Dr. Julius Garvey because he's his son.
You have a call from
Let's see.
860.
CPRLive, greetings. Hello? Hello? Oh, wait a minute. Hello?
Greetings, Brother Carlisle.
Greetings, Brother Don. How are you?
So you've been in the chat room checking it out, huh?
You laugh.
Listening, man. I was listening.
You were listening.
Yeah, but the thing that struck me with Mr. Garvey was he did not seem to have a relationship with the UNIA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm wrong, but that's what I got his response, as if he wasn't close to that organization.
Right.
I didn't know what was going on. He had no interest in that organization.
Right, he's not.
Well, I don't know about his interest, but he certainly let us know he had no knowledge of what they were doing.
Right. If I remember, I spoke to the President General, and I've been going to some of the UNIA events, and he had a falling out with them probably about a good 6 or 7 years ago, and they're not back tight.
Do you think that's what triggered it? Do you think maybe he thought I was set up to, say something to bring out that? Because I'm just asking some honest questions. I don't know.
I'm saying, man, I'm still like I'm gonna talk to the President General on the internet tonight. I'm gonna tell him about what happened.
Saber Ronan says he think I was pranked. He doesn't think that was the real Julius Garvey. He thinks that was an imposter. Well,
Didn't we had him speak? He spoke at one of the Harambe conferences too, didn't he?
I think his brother did.
That was his brother. Okay.
Yeah.
I confused them guys. Man.
Yeah. It was Marcus Jr. who in 96 or 7, I think, spoke at our conference. But so Don, What else? What else?
Yeah, I think he came with intention that you'd have given him the floor to, and then he was free to say whatever he wants to say, and that would have been it.
That's what I keep saying to Saber. You see, because that's exactly how media works. You look. Let's back up. I was asked, okay, one of his associates reached out to me to say Dr. Garvey is doing this project and he needs some exposure for it. Okay? So I called back and said, well, you do know that there are some questions about this. And the interview went on. So it was not a secret on my part. This was not an ambush. This was not, a aha moment that Dr. Garvey thought he was coming into friendly territory and it turned out otherwise. Somebody probably didn't tell him he was coming into real media, which there is very little of these days. Okay? That's the issue. So I don't know what to say beyond that.
He got a little bothered when I think when he said the United States government something or other to his father, and I don't remember the exact quote. You remember that when you said something about Jamaica in relation to the United States, the reaction, and he was like, the most powerful government in the world did this, and
yeah.
Remember that conversation?
Yeah. What I said was that Jamaica didn't seem to be bothered by the fact that he had this conviction in the United States when they made him a national hero, or when they decided to put Garvey in the curriculum in the books, in the curriculum in Jamaica.
Right.
That this issue of his being convicted in the United States didn't seem to bother them. So why make it this big bother? Why put the energies into?
It didn't bother anybody. When Kwame Nkrumah and all these guys were quoting him, it's not bothering them because they understood that this is what the imperialist, racist, governmental powers do.
Well, perhaps nobody told Dr. Garvey that this is what imperialist, racist governments do. Gaddafi is dead. Does he understand why?
I mean, so he said so they're gonna go for a pardon.
They're gonna go for a pardon.
If they don't get it, he said they're gonna come with the next president. And the next president. I mean, listen.
Yeah. So why this?
In our mind, Garvey is innocent. We've already pardoned him in our hearts. I guess.
Look,
he wants it legally done by the most powerful.
29 years ago, John Conyers started, petitioning the Judiciary Committee, which he has sat on for forever, about this situation. Charlie Rangel did the same thing. In fact, I was speaking to someone last evening. I hope you call in. Brother Elder, if you're listening, please call in and talk.
Let me get off, sir. You can clear the line.
Okay, Brother Don, thank you for calling. Thank you so much for calling. I wish some other folk would call in so we can...
I mean, it's clear. If you look at the legal papers, you look at the whole case, it's so easy to see that, Garvey was innocent, and these was like trumped up silly charges.
Well, let's talk about all of that, because you mentioned earlier, and Dr. Garvey mentioned just now, that Marcus Garvey represented himself because
they wanted him to cop a plea.
The lawyer wanted him to cop a plea.
Right.
What do you make of that?
Garvey put it on the fact that Garvey said that it was the Jews that were behind it. Oh man, let me tell you something, man. I'm
glad you didn't say that to his son.
My thing is that it's such a technicality that they got him on, and if anything, they were more upset at the fact that he had the nerve to present himself, do a good job at it. He spoke truth to power, and he wasn't afraid of those white men. That's what they convicted him on that.
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
You know, and when you see these legislators who are refusing to give them a pardon, it's like they're reliving that whole thing, that whole sentiment. You know, because the facts are there.
But nothing has changed. Did we really expect otherwise?
Yeah, well, you know, I think that's one of our biggest problems.
Do we really think that the energy, it's worth putting the time and energy into pursuing this?
You know, for some reason, for some reason, we think that the oppressor has changed. Anybody that has a desire to oppress you, that they will really change. And I say that because, you know, I always refer to that movie Quilombo, you know, where, you know, the Africans are fighting to be free, but the white folks are fighting just as hard to enslave them. You know, and then, you know, right now I'm in the middle of studying the Haitian Revolution. And it's like it's the same thing, man. You know, we're fighting to be free, a right that's ours by nature. And these fights are fighting just as hard to make us slaves. I'm saying, what's wrong with y'all?
Do you know what is silly about all of this? Dr. Garvey agreed to be here with us for a half an hour. We were about 4 minutes, because I had just looked at the time. We were about 4 minutes from the top of the hour when I would have respected. And you know, I was getting ready to ask him to repeat for us what's going to happen in Washington, and kind of make the exit. Brother got upset just right at the finishing line.
But you know something? No, so you said something earlier, and it's kind of like a joke, not a joke, but so perhaps there was an Olympic event that was just coming on, and he decided he wanted to just go and check it out. Maybe it was a race or something, relay race.
You thought he had some more pressing, matter like the Olympics.
I mean, you know, it's like
no, but see. Listen, one of the things that struck me in the letter that I saw is that he said he begins the letter by saying that the Garvey family is pursuing this. And he ends the letter by saying this is not just for the Garvey family, this will benefit all of us. And I think about the lioness whose son is watching and is disappointed. Her 14-year-old is disappointed in the way Dr. Garvey conducted himself here now. Now, help me, am I now to convince anyone and use this platform to convince anyone that this is truly an initiative for the benefit of all of us when you come here and behave like that? I wish somebody would call and help me understand this, because I don't understand it, except in the context of, well, something disingenuous is happening.
Man, like I was just, I didn't really expect it, you know, and I was definitely shocked. It's like, don't tell me that, because you know, I could see where he was going. So when I sensed that he was getting ready to hang up, I was like, don't tell me this guy's going to hang up, man. Oh, man.
Well,
he did.
You sensed he was getting ready to hang up.
Yeah. When he came back in so fast and the way he was talking, I was like...
He asked about a brother down in Florida, Gregory Philp, who did this petition. And let me go to this piece that he wrote, share something with you. Gregory Philp led the campaign to pardon Marcus Garvey. Here's his reaction to President Obama's rejection of the petition. In June 2020, after reading Dreams for My Father, I donated money to Barack Obama's presidential campaign. I guess that was with 2008. It was the first time in my life that I had donated money to a political campaign. I had also read the platform of Senator John McCain, and I thought I had made an informed choice by voting for Barack Obama. I didn't vote for Obama because he was the black candidate. Rather, I thought Obama was the better candidate based on the concepts he outlined in Audacity of Hope. He therefore goes on to say he was quite surprised to read in the Jamaica Observer that the Obama administration had flatly rejected a request for a presidential pardon for Jamaica's first national hero, the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey, on the grounds that it would be, quote, a waste of time and resources, end of quote, since Garvey had been, quote, dead for ages, end of quote.
You have a call from.
Oops, somebody started to call and then hung up. Since Garvey was, quote unquote, dead for ages. In addition, it continues, Miguel Lorne, head of the Marcus Garvey founded People's Political Party, that's a political party in Jamaica, was dismayed by the tone of the reply. Quote, the language used in the reply is most disdainful. It makes you wonder if Obama actually read the request. Phelps continues, whether Mr. Obama read the request or not is immaterial. President Obama is responsible for the statement from anyone in his administration. And this statement is totally at odds with the image that candidate Obama projected. And you know, this is why I raised with Dr. Garvey, what do you have to overcome the objections that President Obama had? And of course, if you're thinking that is not what you know, is who you know, then I guess it doesn't matter what you come with in terms of a presentation. But I'm thinking, if you're going to go to the Supreme Court, you better come with an argument. If you're going to appeal something, if you're going to go to the appeals court, before you even get an opportunity to appeal, you better show that you have something other than the same old argument. You can't just come with the same old argument. Like, don't waste my time with it. Is the way the court operates.
You have a call from 8686.
CPR, good evening. Hello? Hello? Caller, are you there?
I hear something very low.
Okay, I hear you very low, caller. For some reason, I'm not hearing you. Can you hear us? Caller, are you hearing us? Let me see. We're doing fine on this end. I'm not sure why the caller is still on the line, and the caller hung up. I don't know what happened. Please call back, and maybe we can figure out what the problem is before you hang up again. But I was thinking that there is something other than I am the son of Marcus Garvey making this request that this request is coming with. But I think he pointed out that there is nothing like that. It's just you don't need numbers. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine in the context of Marcus Garvey saying you don't need numbers?
Garvey had numbers.
Garvey was about numbers.
You should take advantage of all those numbers. See, for example, he should be getting the president of every country that said they were influenced by Garvey. Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. He should be getting the heads of all those countries to be...
You have a call from 3.
Send a letter to the president.
Hello? Speak to this person for me. Hold on.
Hey, how you doing, Ann Moore? We're busy here trying to get you patched through the board because for some reason it's acting up our system.
Let's see.
Okay.
Hello?
I just heard it from her.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, we got you.
Okay, good. We got you. We know what we got to do now. Greetings and welcome to CPRLive. Who are we talking with?
This is Ann Moore.
Hi, Ann Moore. Thank you so much for calling. What's on your mind?
I'm in shock.
Oh.
I was geared up to hear something of substance.
Wait a minute. You didn't think my questions were substance? Had substance in them?
Yes, and I was grossly disappointed.
Wow.
I was in shock at how rude Mr. Garvey was, and it tells me quite a bit because I have been inquiring as to that press conference tomorrow in Washington, and I reached out to Jeffrey Philippe.
Yes.
And he is even being given information on a need-to-know basis. And considering the fact that he's one of the people quite instrumental in getting the initiative out there, because he was the one who I heard it from about 2 or 3 years ago. And I thought it was quite, weird that he didn't know what others wouldn't know. Anywho, based on something that Saber said.
Hold on 1 minute for me. Let me see if I can, just hold a minute for me. Greetings. Hello?
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 Yeah, that's better. I can hear you now.
Who's calling?
My name is Adeyemi Hines, calling from Trinidad.
Okay, I have Ann Moore on the line, and now I have Adeyemi Hines on the line. Go ahead. Hold a minute. Let Ann Moore finish her thought. Go ahead, Ann Moore.
Yes, I was. It tells me quite a lot now because, based on the information he finally got to give me, because I wanted to know details as to venue, time, and so on. And he was told that it's basically for mainstream media is what it all boils down to. And when I heard Saber mention earlier how he seemed to have perceived CPR, then I kind of understand that even more. Because I was told that it's mostly for the press, but the group should come to Howard at 3 p.m. Right after the press conference, there will be a strategy session with activist groups at Howard University.
Interesting.
So it's very disorganized. It's very fragmented, and something's not right.
Okay.
Hold on. Thank you so much for that, Ann Moore. Hold on. We have a caller calling from Trinidad, and I want to make sure we get that caller in. Adeyemi Hines, are you hearing us? Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Greetings, Adeyemi.
Yeah, bless.
Greetings and welcome to CPRLive. How are you?
I'm blessed. I'm a bit confused like everyone else.
I take it you were listening to the conversation with Dr. Julius Garvey.
Sorry, just 1 moment, please.
Okay. Ann Moore was just...
1 moment.
Yes, go ahead. Ann Moore, you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Adeyemi. You say you're confused like everyone else. Explain yourself.
Okay. First of all, I think when we started to discuss the program today, I posted the information out on Facebook.
Yes.
I generally got the question is, why are we trying to answer the same people who really persecuted Marcus Garvey? Why are we asking them for pardon or exoneration? And I understand it in one way, but in another way, I'm also at a loss, because through as being a follower of Garvey, it's about self-reliance, it's about us doing it ourselves. So it's like us going back to Massa again and asking them for forgiveness. You know? In my own view, Garvey has nothing to answer for. Garvey has a lot to contribute to our upliftment as a race. He set that out. So there's a degree of confusion between those who want exoneration and what I would call foot soldiers, people on the ground who live the principles of Garvey, who practice the principles of Garvey, and it's therefore what they call it a dichotomy. So I think even the discussion this evening highlighted it, and we're now talking more about what happened in terms of his contribution to the program than us talking about what we can do as activists to continue to push Garvey, because I think that's the whole thing. Throughout the whole last 100 years, people have continued to press and to push Garvey's teachings in Jamaica, around the world. And I know I've been in touch with quite a few of them. So I think one of the most important things for us to do is to continue his work. It's unfortunate that we had this scenario this evening, but in a way I've experienced with both sons. You know, there was Marcus Garvey Jr. had made some comments but in a program some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of found it strange, but in a way, I say this, sometimes a generation of us have to pass away. Certain things have to go by. Certain things have to be lost. You know, those of us who believe in Garvey's works and teachings need to continue to work, continue to do what we need to do, and therefore stumbling blocks that are put in our way, or stumbling blocks that we don't understand sometimes, we just have to rise above them. So I suggest this evening that we need to rise above what we heard this evening and continue to work and continue to spread Garvey's message and Garvey's teachings, which is alive and well and continues to inspire and uplift all people. I hope that in some way contributes something to the debate, but
well,
don't everybody else I've heard so far this evening, it's a bit confusing in terms of what came across.
Please don't go anywhere. We want to pursue this further with you in the chat room. Miss G says exactly.
Yes, I'm trying to get into the chat room. I've got you on Facebook as well, so
okay.
It might be easier for me on Facebook because I'm unable to get into the chat room.
No, I'm just letting you know that folk are agreeing with you in the chat room, saying exactly, Adi. I mean, Mr. Hines is on point. But I want to ask you this, though, in terms of moving forward. You know, I believe it was Marcus Garvey himself who said he was not interested in taking everyone back to Africa because some people just weren't ready. And in terms of moving forward, we need to understand, as we saw here this evening, that, well, some people are just not ready, notwithstanding their last names. How do we move forward with regard to those folk within our community? Do we simply move on without them? Do we try to cultivate them? Or do we realize the need to be the vanguard and do what has to be done at this instant in time and worry about them later? Do we do triage? How do you feel about that?
My brother, at the moment, it's a continued difficult task.
Yes.
It's something I've been involved with for many years, and we continue to strive, we continue to try, and that's all at the moment that we can do. Continue to spread the teachings, continue to do what we have to do as people on the ground, continue to share the education. This month there's so many events around the world that celebrate Marcus Garvey's birthday. So we just need to continue doing what we're doing. We can't bring everybody with us because Garvey himself said, he doesn't want to take all Africans back to Africa. Some of them and no good here, and there will be no good there.
Well, in the chat
You
room,
know,
in the chat
we're
room,
going to lose some along the way. That's what's going to happen. We have to, we just have to be aware of that. You know, the old song about 10,000 careless Ethiopians shall go down with Babylon springs to mind.
yes, yes, indeed.
You know, so you won't save everybody. You just do what you can.
Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned we need to keep on doing what we're doing. What are we doing?
Well, I see a lot happening. I see a great deal happening. I think what the problem is a lot tends to be happening. I wouldn't say in isolation. It's happening all over the place, but people are not aware of it. So there's many events happening around the states that I know of, and I'm here in Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
There are many. There's so many. It's untold. In England, I know there's events happening. In Africa, I know there are events happening.
You know, Dr.
So
Garvey.
there is a lot happening. That's one of the things we have to understand sometimes.
Dr. Garvey suggested that it didn't matter if the things that are happening are diffuse, that they're not connected, that, you know, we don't know what's going on. What are your thoughts about that in terms of the things you see happening that we don't necessarily know about?
I disagree. I would hope that I know what's going on. I try to keep myself aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
So, I think sometimes, you know, it's down to people haven't actually looking, checking. You know, I can list probably 20, 30 events that's due to happen in the next week or so around Garvey.
What impact?
So there's so many things going on.
What impact do you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah. So there's so many things happening. So people might feel that there's nothing happening, but trust me, there is a lot happening.
I was going to.
And I would draw some adding of many years ago. You know, I would think we would have events and you would get a few people turned out, and I've seen that growing over the years. You know, the massive turnout at events. So I'm not desponding about it. I think some of the times we are getting distracted, you know, like it's almost a journey. And along the journey, some of us get distracted and get pulled off because of things that are happening around us, you know?
Yes.
But I think the main thing is we need to stay focused. So some of the things, going back to Garvey told us about building our own institutions, building our own schools, teaching our own children, because I've seen the benefits of that. You know, I've seen Garveyites in London. You know, they've stuck hard and fast to that, and I've seen their children, and I've seen what their children have done and achieved.
You know, so my brother,
I've lived the principle, and I've seen the principle. If we stick to the path, what is possible.
One of my contentions.
So that's all I can say at the moment. That's what I can say. We need to stay focused, stick to the path, stick to the teachings. You know, we need to be building our institutions economically, socially, in every way. You know, he's written it all down. He's told us what to do. What we have to do is do it.
Ain't nothing to it but to do it. I got you on that one. You know, one of the.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Anmore.
I agree with all Adiemi has said, and I pose a question now, based on the fact that, okay, yes, we're seeking exoneration or pardon, whatever they're trying to do, from the United States. Yes, because the United States is the one who placed that whole stigma on Garvey. But the people who really, truly matter know the truth. Yes, we recognize that. But when you have someone like a Julius Garvey, who is somewhat, well, in my estimation, seen as a kind of gatekeeper. When you have someone like him in the mix, and from all I gathered from him this evening, he's more of a hindrance to the process based on what everybody else who truly knows what the teachings of Marcus Garvey are and are upholding those teachings. How it's like you're battering against a ram.
Okay.
Because the powers that be are looking at him and his name, and he's not accomplishing much or kind of organized. But the people who aren't seeing that progress, so to speak, in the way that it really should be. How do you work around that?
Well, the first thing I would say, and we have to, in a way, go back to our teachings. Dr. Julius Garvey is our elder. We need to continue to show him respect, even though he might have views that disagree with us, or maybe we disagree with what some way he approaches it. So we, in ourselves, need to, like I say, rise above certain things. And that is one of them. We have to continue to show him respect as the elder. We can disagree, but we also have to stick to our focus as well.
We know all that, but then he can still stagnate the process.
Yes, but as I said, that becomes a distraction in the road. Having to debate his behavior, look at what he's done, becomes a distraction. So we have to stay on focus. Let me know we're trying to go down the right path. Listen, down the road, the young ones might disagree with us as elders. So we might also have to come face that same thing one day down the road. Because I've seen some young people who are coming through, and they've come up with that same Garvey. They're the ones who made attend the Garvey Saturday school. I've seen how they organize. I'm very proud of them. I've seen what they've achieved. I made some suggestions to them as an elder. They came back to me and they said, well, no, we believe certain things. I, as an elder, had to turn around and I said, all right, I think you're right. Go do it your way. So we also have to learn to accept criticism, give criticism, and rise above it, because the end goal is the greatest goal.
Let me jump in here.
I'm going to free up the line for somebody else.
Thank you so much, Ann Moore.
Okay.
Brother Adeyemi, let me ask you this. In the chat room, Mr. G says it's a challenge.
Yes, I'll say I'm listening and I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Who is that leaving?
Sounds like Adeyemi is leaving.
Okay, I think. Okay, so the Adeyemi has left, and so has Ann Moore. It's an interesting situation, Sable. In the chat room, Mr. G says it's a challenge. It's one of the. He is the one that was not being respectful. As an elder, I would not act like that. Now, you know about traditional behavior and respect of elders, but what is the responsibility of the elder? The brother pointed out as an elder how he handled a situation where he was challenged. What is the responsibility of an elder?
Well, there's a certain behavior expected of elders. There's no doubt. And the way he acted may be seen as sort of unbecoming. But in traditional society, though, the reality is that some elders would act like that.
Yeah, but the question, though, is when an elder acts like that, what's supposed to happen?
Well, hopefully.
Do you continue to be respectful of? Well, what do you respect? The behavior, the person, what?
You always be respectful, but you can always challenge. You see, you just challenge in a respectful way, which is what, in many ways, we were doing.
And I think the question, and Moore was asking, well, if this elder is going to be standing in the way, what do we now do? Is the question that she was asking.
The challenge would be that, hopefully, if people see that the elder is not acting properly, that they will then assign someone else. See, it's different when you have a structure of leadership.
Right. So elder is not just that you're old in age. Elder, you're part of a structure.
Right.
To be an elder in traditional society. So
and a certain kind of behavior is expected of you. And a lot of times that behavior is to reinforce the traditions of how it was done before you.
And I guess the question I'm asking is, what happens when we're in a situation where we're imposing Western values on traditional traditions?
Then that person, someone has to replace that person. Because, one monkey can't stop the show. I mean, so that, people in our wisdom, because, the elder's not going to be the only one that's going to have wisdom. Other folks will have wisdom too. So it's like we all can see right. So, for example, perfect example would be if we were really in a setting.
Let me interrupt you for a minute.
Go ahead.
I see in the chat room that Gregory Phillips is listening, and I would really appreciate if Mr. Phillips would give us a call at 718-841-9986, 718-841-9986. We were just reading about you, and Moore was just talking about you, and we would love to hear from you, Mr. Phillips, if you would be so kind as to give us a call here at CPRLive, 718-841-9986. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I'm saying, so in the case of him acting like an elder, him being an elder, if he's not carrying out the dictates of the people that follow and respect him, then we would challenge him, and eventually he'd have to be replaced. There's someone else who would, follow the traditions, listen to the people, because, as I said before, one monkey cannot stop the show, and it's not like African society was autocratic, it was a meritocracy. And so if he's not doing right, and he's got to, we got to move him to the side, because and again, they would do various kinds of readings, and they would determine that this guy's got to go.
See, a part of the issue that I'm raising is that we have a piece of the tradition, but we don't know the entire tradition, and so we honor the tradition. The tradition says you honor the elder,
right.
But you're pointing out that the tradition goes beyond just honor the elder.
Right. It's always
it's broader than
right.
just that.
You know what happens. See, it's just like we talk about kawaida and tradition with reason. Right? In a traditional society, people will challenge the tradition. If they think that if it's not right. So you've always had that element or aspect.
And challenge the tradition or the behavior?
Challenge the behavior.
Challenge
the behavior.
Yes.
Because the behavior would not be fulfilling the tradition.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And again, you'll find examples of you might have an elder that's an alcoholic. And it'll present a problem within the traditions. Now, what folks would do is, as long as he's fulfilling the dictates and the prescriptions of an elder,
you have a call from
they'll let him stay.
6.
CPRLive, good evening. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Go right ahead. Who's calling?
This is Jeffrey Phillips. How are you?
Oh, wonderful, Mr. Phillips. Good to have you.
How you doing there, brother?
Carlisle McKinney here along with Saber Damani. Good to have you. Talk to us. I gather you've been listening to the conversation, and did you hear the exchange with Dr. Garvey?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe you can fill us in on your efforts to secure a pardon for Marcus Garvey.
Well, to begin, when I started the first petition, I asked Dr. Garvey for his blessing in order to move forward, and he said it was fine for me to start. So the first petition that I began as Garvey would have done, begin locally. So we sent the first petition. We gathered 11,000 signatures, and we presented them to Representative Frederica Wilson, who represents us here in Florida in Miami Gardens and its environs.
Yes.
So that was the first petition, and we presented it to her, and we then started another petition, which garnered 2,000, and then I cut that one short when I heard that Dr. Garvey was going to do his work, and so that's where we are. I am basically taking my lead from Dr. Garvey because, as you said, these are elders, and we have to respect them.
Now, what was the purpose of what was the objective of your petition?
The petition was to exonerate Marcus Garvey.
To exonerate?
As your earlier caller said, Garvey did nothing wrong. In fact, if you read through the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, he calls it a frame-up.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as I'm concerned, Garvey never did anything wrong. So that was what we are seeking, an exoneration. Now, from what I understand from Justin Hansford, who is Dr. Garvey's legal counsel, the president cannot exonerate Marcus Garvey. What he can do is he can offer a presidential pardon.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, we're getting into legalistic language.
No, I think it's important
the limits of presidential power.
Exactly. I think it's important that we clarify these things, though, because you're saying that your petition was seeking exoneration, and
yes,
and your petition was being presented to whom? To the Congress?
It was already presented.
To the Congress or the president?
It was presented to Representative Frederica Wilson.
And who was she presenting it to? Was it going to the Congress or to
She was supposed to. Well, what we were hoping was that it would go through Representative Rangel and the Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, so that they would bring it forth as a resolution. Given the state of Congress these days, I don't think she had much luck with getting that done.
Right. And so your understanding is that you could secure the exoneration of Garvey through that process of going to the Congress?
Going through the Congress, but the Congress has not been willing to take it up. Neither have the courts been willing to reopen a case that is 90 years old. And so the only alternative that we have left now is to ask for a presidential pardon. But there are two schools of thought, and the other caller who was in spoke about this.
Yes.
We can either divide ourselves into two camps, which say we do nothing to go back to the institutions that framed Garvey, or we can go back to the same institutions and ask for, as offensive as the language is, a presidential pardon. But I take the long view, which is we cannot do everything in this time. Frantz Fanon said every generation must rise to its historical mission, and this is as far as we can take. This is our 10 yards that we can take the ball. Where I am hoping that another generation will come along, and the younger people who come after me will take that and move it along. But as far as I'm seeing it right now, given the state of the country, given the state of politics, this is as far as we can go.
And when you say this is as far, the 10 yards that we can go right now would be a presidential pardon. Is that what you're saying?
A presidential pardon, yes.
Okay. Okay, so you're comfortable with pursuing a presidential pardon because from your perspective, that is all that is achievable in this time.
One person defined politics as the art of the possible. Yes.
Okay.
This is what is possible right now.
Okay. Now let me ask you this, which is what I was asking.
In other words, it's not a zero-sum game.
You
have to look at this thing generationally.
You see a gradual movement to the ultimate.
Yes.
But you know,
yes.
See now, I'm not a lawyer, and I wanted to ask the key question. I had a chance to ask Dr. Garvey, and he gave me an answer. But I'll ask you the question anyway. So that means then that you're saying that because the case is so many years old, that the president does not have the power to exonerate a person posthumously.
No, he's not saying that.
Okay. The president does not have the power
to exonerate
anyone.
Anyone.
Period.
He can only issue a presidential pardon.
Okay, so my next question would be then, is there a statute of limitation concerning exoneration? In other words, after so many... Go ahead.
Okay, the exoneration would have to be pursued through the court. But many of the judges that have been approached through the years, they are not willing to reopen a case that is 90 years old.
Okay, so there's no statute of limitation.
So let me give you the three ways in which we can get Garvey's name cleared of some sort. Number one, we have the court. That's not going to happen. Number two, we have Congress. That isn't happening. The third one is a presidential pardon from President Obama. And even that is not guaranteed.
Let's talk about that, because you expressed in the piece I saw on the internet some extreme disappointment in President Obama's rationale for not doing that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, so from what I've heard afterwards, the person, and this is all secondhand, and I don't like, but from what I've heard, he did not see the original petition that was sent to him, I think, by Donovan Parker. And from what I've heard, the lawyer who was in charge of that, who made that ridiculous statement, is no longer with the Obama team.
So let me see.
I don't know this for a fact.
Let me see
I've
if I
heard this through secondhand sources.
Yeah, let me see if I understand what you're saying. If I understand you clearly, you are saying that what has been ascribed to President Obama was in fact not his, but his attorney's posture, and that he himself had not seen the petition, which is in line with
what I've been told.
And that seems to be in line with what you say Miguel Lauren had to say, that it appears he may not even have seen the thing.
Right.
Okay. Does that mean that he might be inclined? Do you know anything of his posture at this time on the issue? We do know that it was raised by the former Prime Minister in Jamaica last year on his visit.
Yes.
And he declined. So what do we know of his posture at this time?
This is why I've been saying that Dr. Garvey's press conference tomorrow and the move that is afoot is extremely important, because President Obama is like any other politician. Unless you put their feet to the fire, unless you give them some kind of political cover, then they will not act. So this is why we need to put together something to, because he's going, if in fact he does pardon Garvey, there is going to be an enormous amount of flack that he will receive. And in fact, it will probably be one way or the other. It will be a mark on his presidency, good or bad. He will have to decide.
You know, I raised with Dr. Garvey this issue of the president has already said he's not disposed to pardoning based on whatever he's seen before. And I did raise the question of, so what?
But he has already issued 348 pardons during his tenure.
Right. We know he's issued hundreds of pardons during his tenure. One of the characteristics that I noticed, though, of pardons he's issued, which would be in line with the response that he gave, or that we are aware of in terms of it being old, is that all of these pardons have been to people who are alive and would therefore stand to benefit from the pardon. And I believe the argument he's making in terms of it being useless is that the pardon would be of no use to Marcus Garvey since he's...
But that was the statement of the previous attorney, who I am told is no longer on the case.
Right, I understand it's the statement of the previous attorney, but it seems to be the practice in that all of the 300 and odd pardons that he's done so far have all been for people who are indeed alive. So it might well be the thinking of the White House that you pardon people who can benefit from the pardon. And so my
yes, it may be, but remember, President Clinton,
yes,
exonerated. I mean, I shouldn't say exonerated. Pardoned Lieutenant Flipper. President Bush, at the end of his term, I think his name was Peltier. I can't remember well, but there are historic precedences of presidents offering posthumous pardons.
So
those being President Bill Clinton and George W. Bush.
Okay. Right. So my question...
This would not be something extraordinary.
My question then, and it's the same question I asked Dr. Garvey, is what would we then have to present to President Obama to convince him to make a posthumous pardon, which we know that posthumous pardons are out of the ordinary, and I would imagine it would need some extraordinary argument for it.
Well, most of the details are going to be coming out tomorrow in the press conference that Dr. Garvey is going to be holding in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there. I'll be taking part in other Garvey celebrations. But they do have a legal team that is assembling or has assembled a legal document to present to Mr. Obama. Because here's the other part. One of the things that I objected to with the Donovan Parker petition is that it came only from Donovan Parker. I know he's an attorney here in Florida, and I'm not meaning to badmouth him in any way, but it was a singular petition.
What do you mean singular? You mean
came from...
There were no other signatures than his?
Pardon me?
There were no other signatories to this. This was just his.
There were no other right.
Okay. Now let me just share with you some comments in the chat room before I raise the question. In the chat room, Anmore says, "Can't we seek the pardon, then take it to the Supreme Court for the extradition?"
Exoneration.
For the exoneration. What do you know about that?
Again, yeah, but you see, the court case will have to be open.
Can you seek exoneration after a pardon?
Well, that is possible, which is why I'm saying once the pardon has been granted, then possibly. But I'm not a lawyer. This,
Yeah.
again, I've talked with lawyers,
Right.
and from what I've heard is that once a pardon has been granted, then other venues may open up. But there are, as it stands right now, there are no other avenues that are open to us.
Well,
as a community.
let me ask you another question regarding that. Dr. Garvey pointed out that Marcus Garvey fired his lawyer and chose to represent himself because the lawyer wanted him to take a deal, and he insisted he was
Yes.
not. He insisted he was not guilty. Therefore, there was no point of taking a deal.
Right.
In pursuing
Well,
a
you know, anytime a black person gets arrested, they want to plea bargain.
But my question, though, is in pursuing a pardon, aren't we really going against the posture that Marcus Garvey himself said in not accepting culpability? Because if you
But
pardon,
if you read the philosophy and opinions of Marcus Garvey, I think page 241, if I'm not, yes, page 241, Garvey appeals for a pardon.
for a pardon,
It's right there in the book.
okay,
Yes.
okay, and so we're comfortable pursuing the pardon on the basis of what Marcus Garvey did, seeking a pardon. I know he sought to clear his name. The particular
Page 241, Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. That I'm talking about the edition that Tony Martin put together.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Anyone can go and look at that for themselves, where Garvey seeks to get a pardon.
Okay, okay. So the other question that has come up is, okay, so we get the pardon, and so what? Where do we go from there? In terms of, not in terms of exoneration, but in terms of Garvey's legacy.
Well, we continue. Here's the difference between Garvey and his I call him enemy, Du Bois, who founded the NAACP.
Mm-hmm.
The NAACP sought political and social inclusion within the American system.
Mm-hmm.
Barack Obama is the epitome of that. But Garvey had a much broader view of the destiny of Africans at home and abroad. And he laid out certain principles. These principles such as the redemption of Africa, that we should educate ourselves, that we should be self-reliant, that we should have a purpose, that we should build entrepreneurship, that we should build community, and that we should build tradition. Right? If you notice here, the word spell out the word respect for Africans at home and abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm saying is, this, if in other words, Du Bois' vision ends, but Garvey's continues as long as Africans anywhere in the world are in a state of not being self-reliant, not having a purpose, not educating ourselves. So the work goes on and on and on. Garvey's work will never end.
And my question is, how will the pardon aid the continuance of that work?
Well, the first thing is...
Or is it not related to the continuance of the work?
It brings Garvey's name and Garvey's legacy back into the conversation, especially in this time now of Black Lives Matter. One of the things that, as I see it, that the Black Lives Matter movement does not have is any policy. They don't have any clear policies that they want to pursue. What I'm saying is, if you bring Garvey back into the conversation, and you're in fact guarded by these principles of redemption, education, entrepreneurship, then you can come out with definite policy goals that you can present to and work on within the community.
I find it interesting that
we become more self-reliant. We become more purposeful. We build our communities. We educate ourselves. But again, remember Garvey, when he went back to Jamaica, Garvey ran for public office and was in fact a member of the local government there in St. Andrews, the KSAC. So Garvey was not averse to politics. In fact, he was a part of the political system, and some of the platform that he ran on in Jamaica has still not yet been done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a little bit. I have to go back to the point where you said it would bring Garvey's name back into the conversation. How did it leave? Adiemi Hines was just on telling us that work is going on around the world and continues to go on. We just don't know much about it, but it's going on. You seem to be...
But here's the thing. Many of these young activists who are coming up now have never heard. I give lectures all the time about Marcus Garvey. I begin by saying, how many people here know the name Marcus Garvey? And one or two names shoot up. And this is usually in black schools, black high schools here in South Florida. So what I'm saying is, if the kids don't even know the name Marcus Garvey, much less what he stands for, then how will they bring about any kind of meaningful change? And as far as I see it, Garvey has been the only one, the only black leader in the 20th century to bring forth any kind of meaningful change. But he has been practically been written out of the history book. So how will it? They compared to the number of activists who are still talking about Garvey and the total media blackout. I mean, not to put them down, but the kids are chasing Pokemon.
And you think that once Garvey is pardoned, chances are his name will be more widely known and it will be in the curriculum and they will learn of him in school, which they're not doing now. It's not going to happen by magic. Right.
Here's how I've always approached it. Whether Garvey is pardoned or exonerated or whatever, it really doesn't affect my work as such, because I will continue doing what I'm doing, which is to talk about Marcus Garvey. Now, if Garvey's name gets a wider appeal, if Garvey's name and work is somehow now highlighted by a pardon, which I am sure it will, that is when our work has really begun on a larger scale. Because now all of us will have to up our game.
Okay. Saber?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So you will not be able to attend the press conference tomorrow?
No, I'm with another organization here in Florida, the Roots Foundation, with Ijabulani Tafari, who has been hosting Marcus Garvey Days and Marcus Garvey celebrations publicly for the past. And again, in cooperation with the City Commission of Fort Lauderdale, they have been hosting public events, keeping Garvey's name alive for the past 12 years.
Tell us a little bit about that. Adiemi Hines just talked about the fact that...
We have a big extravaganza tomorrow.
Okay. So you have a significant event taking place there that takes precedence. I got you. Well, listen, I want to thank you so much for calling in and sharing with us your views and perspectives on this issue of pardoning Marcus Garvey and preserving Marcus Garvey's legacy. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about Marcus Garvey's legacy and why it's important that it be preserved. Hello?
Hello? I didn't catch the last part there.
I was asking you if there were any final thoughts you wanted to share on the significance of Marcus Garvey's legacy?
Well, before I even do that, I want to thank you on CPRLive for even putting this on. You know, there are still many people out there who don't even want to say or hear the name Marcus Garvey. So the first thing is to thank you for putting this on. As far as the legacy of Marcus Garvey is concerned, I think his work should be studied. I had an interview with a journalist, and I'm not lying about this. Every time I think I've learned something new, Marcus Garvey surprised me, because I go back to his work and I go, my God, he knew without going to any big universities and things. I'll give you just one example. I was studying semiotic theory last year, and semiotic theory is the study of signs and symbols. And I thought I was onto something big, new, and grand. But Marcus Garvey, simply, he gave us a flag, the red, green, and black, for all of us worldwide, Africans at home and abroad, to rally around. Now, that to me is a genius of Garvey. And as I said, every time I think I have learned something new, Garvey has been 100 years ahead of me.
The red, the black, and the green, indeed, given to us by Marcus Garvey. Listen, thank you for your kind words about CPRLive. We do appreciate it. Please pass the word that it ain't just music, it's life at CPRLive. That's our practice, that's our slogan, that's our practice. It's what we're about. And I also want to thank you for being kind enough to call in and share your insights with us. Another of our practices is working together to make things work. And you've just worked with us this evening to bring some enlightenment to our audience, and we do thank and appreciate you for it.
Well, you also have to thank Ann Moore. She was the one who called me, and Sharon also called me and said, Jeffrey, did you hear what is happening?
Like I said, working together to make things work. I am not surprised to hear that folk are working behind the scenes to make it work. It's a part of the hallmark of CPR.
Also, too, it's very important that you called in, because Dr. Julius Garvey was on the program earlier, and he didn't really represent the cause well. So you've kind of like redeemed him, and you've made the evening worthwhile, worth listening to, So we're glad you called.
Well, as I said, I am thankful that Dr. Garvey gave me the opportunity and the blessing to go forward. And all of us, we have our bad days, we have our good days. I really don't know what happened, so I can't speak to it. But I know he has been actively involved in this for longer than I have been. And, we're also talking about his father. We won't feel, the anguish that he's 83 years old now. So we won't feel the anguish that he feels about it. It is his father.
My brother, it is our Marcus Garvey. Any way you slice it's our Marcus Garvey.
But here's the thing. There's Marcus Garvey the man, and there's Marcus Garvey the movement.
But understand this, though. You can't say on one hand, this is not just for the Garvey family, it's for all of you.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, say, it's my father. Don't stay out of it. You can't have it both ways.
But what I'm saying is, the two things are intimately entwined, and in his case, the personal, the personal may outweigh the political. You get what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I
But
do understand what you're saying.
At this point, Garvey has so many children nowadays that the biological ones they can claim them, but the sociological ones and the political ones we claim them too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Indeed. In the chat room, Miss G says, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. He did not represent his father tonight at all. You have done a better job of it.
Yeah, well, we thank you. We thank you for
And
calling in.
we thank you for calling in, Brother Jeffrey. And hope to have you back.
And thank you.
And please give our regards to Brother Jabulani down there in Florida. And
Yes.
how's the newspaper?
I will do that.
How's the newspaper doing?
The newspaper is doing very well.
Okay, wonderful. Please give him our regards.
I will do so.
One love.
Peace.
One love.
Irie. Well, there you have it. Jeffrey Phillips giving us his perspective on the goal of pardoning Marcus Garvey, and he understands it as the best we can do in this time, and therefore the least we can do in this time.
Now, the interview that he gave us, I was expecting that kind of interview from Julius Garvey. I was expecting that same type of thing. In other words, he gave us what Garvey should have gave us.
Well,
And the reality is that they both have access and probably know the same information. In fact, Garvey knows even more.
he's following Garvey's
Right,
lead.
but
so.
somehow, he just could. He didn't have the temperament, or he became offended for whatever reason, and he just wasn't able to present it.
Yeah, I don't think I approached it any differently in terms of, or for that matter, you did in terms of asking questions of the
I don't think so. either.
interviewee.
I mean, I don't remember anything that Maybe it must be your tone. He's able to see through you or something.
Did I have a different tone for
first of all, like I said,
Jeffrey?
I couldn't really understand why he was being antagonistic. I was really, and I noticed it about maybe at a certain point it became clear. I said, this guy like we're going against him. Like this is not.
Well, Jeffrey
we're not
said
combatant.
people just have a bad day from time to
Yeah,
time,
I
and
guess,
maybe
yeah,
it was
yeah.
just a bad
The
day.
anxiety for tomorrow, anticipation of tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's possible.
spending time asking me all these questions when I got a big press conference to prepare for tomorrow.
Yeah.
I can
Oh man.
I can hear that, but we're still welcoming calls. By the way, folk want to call in and share thoughts. Some folk were pretty vocal in the chat room. Is the elder Jose Richards out there listening? I would certainly invite you to call in, Brother Jose, and let us hear your Garvey wisdom. You never short of Garvey wisdom. We hope you have some to share tonight. I know you're averse to conversing in the chat room, but if the Spirit moves you and you feel like picking up the phone and giving us a call and sharing a few minutes of your time with us, we absolutely invite you to do so. Of course, the invitation goes out to anyone else out there listening. Those of you who are listening on the internet, the number is 718-841-9986. And I said the internet. Everybody's listening on the internet. But Facebook is not in the chat room and doesn't have the number. It's 718-841-9986. And while I'm at it, let me remind you that CPRLive, and we certainly welcome the kind words of Jeffrey Phillips regarding CPRLive and us having this presentation this evening. But let me remind you that we are a listener-supported platform. We are all volunteers, but we do have light bill and streaming bill and computers that break and such the likes. So we invite you to become a member of CPR, and what that means is that you make a donation of $50 for an annual membership, and that $50 helps to offset the cost of maintaining the operation. That's what it is. So we invite you to give us a call or send us an email, info, I-N-F-O, at CPRREGGAE, info at CPRreggae.org. Send us an email, and we will take it from there. It really is important that we preserve this platform in much the same way that it's important that we preserve Marcus Garvey's legacy. It is platforms like this, as Jeffrey Phelps just pointed out, that helps to preserve that legacy. It's platforms like this. What we would like to do is to make sure that the kinds of efforts that Adiemi Hines spoke of, that's taking place all over the world in remembering and keeping Marcus Garvey alive, that we share that information. It should not be that, as Jeffrey Phelps just said, that people don't want to know. How could you not want to know about the greatest organizer that ever lived? I don't even understand that not wanting to know part of it. I can understand some people are ignorant of it, and if you don't know, you don't know. But if you know of Garvey and decide you don't want to know, then that's kind of tough for me to understand. But, you know, there are other things that I don't understand. There's a lot of things that I don't understand. That would be one of them. Katie.